Good Tuesday evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Let's Talk Live here on the LTL Media Channel. And I want to welcome everybody in. Come on into the live chat. I see some Go Squad members here and all my regular subscribers. So we're going to have a fantastic conversation tonight. I can't wait to get a friend of the show, a really longtime friend of the show here, retired veteran Todd McGhee, Mass State Police Todd McGhee, and get his kind of take on everything that we've been seeing in the last couple of weeks here that have been going on in and around the Mass State Police. But very nice to see a lot of the moderators here. We're getting some Go Squad members. I wanted to just kind of highlight this before I bring Todd in. We have Rogue that has returned here, and it's been a long time since we've seen her avatar in the chat, and it's very nice to see her. She's a channel moderator and been a member of the channel for 14 months. We go way back, and it's really nice to see you back here. But let's not wait too much longer. We're going to bring Todd McGhee in and welcome here back to the Let's Talk Live panel. Todd, how you doing?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm good, and happy Thanksgiving if I don't get to say that to you before we go tonight.
And to you and yours.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit backstage in the green room. I said, what is really your favorite thing that you enjoy eating? So probably like a little bit of everything. And I said, I love when my mom makes the turkey and she puts all that stuffing on the outside and that really crusty stuff. But that's the beautiful stuff. But we're not here to talk about Thanksgiving. We're not here to talk about food. We're here to talk about a lot of things that we have seen that have come across the airwaves here in the state of Massachusetts recently with the Mass State Police. And I wanted to get a lot of clarity as we have an expert veteran of the force. What, 19 years, Todd? Did I get that right?
24-year total law enforcement career.
Got it. Great. But let's do this. I do have a slide presentation, so we're going to bring that up, and I have some vignette clips in there. And I just love Todd to kind of maybe educate us or commentate on some of this stuff, and we'll go through it and maybe put some things to rest or get some good expertise on these. So let me share my screen. And again, I want to welcome Todd McGhee back to the show. Thank you for being here. And the theme is there any standards anymore? It just feels like there's no accountability. And here are all the cases that we cover here, specifically on the LTL Media Channel. But let's get into this first. So recently, Todd, we have seen a lot of scandals that have come across involving the Mass State Police here in Massachusetts. And I wanted to talk about this one first, because this really, I was like, you got to be kidding me. And I know that you and I texted about this just recently. And the headline says, dozens of Massachusetts police officers accused of bypassing mandatory online training. And what I would love to do is, before I play this little vignette, could you tell us a little bit about the online training? What do those modules look like, and what are the the different things that they involved?
Absolutely. Brian, I can take you back to my era when I was active in law enforcement. There were overtime costs that were associated with putting police officers, whether it was state police, municipal police, in training seats. And so typically what you would have is an in-service level of training. Every police officer in Massachusetts is mandated to go through firearms training, and obviously you can't do that from a computer. So that was one training that had to stay in person, hands-on. Then when you start getting into new policies, new procedures, when you start getting into legal updates, there was a transition from instructor-led instruction to an online focused. And that was all to preserve overtime dollars, to make sure that budgets weren't being overran. And so that was the genesis of online training. Mid-2000s.
Do you think COVID had a part of any of that too, or?
Way before COVID, way
Okay.
before. Yeah, way before COVID. Mid-2000s, if I had to give you a time frame. And you had that sense of, okay, can we achieve the same objective with training and education on an online platform? Now, that being said, when you're in face-to-face training, it's hard to hide.
Yeah.
When you're in an online virtual environment, human nature, some like to cut corners. And this is exactly what you're seeing from that report. So you're seeing members of different police departments, from local municipalities up to the state. You have individual officers that are circumventing the process. And if there's not a watchdog, someone internally that's capturing who's signing in, who's logging in, and oh, by the way, who's actually watching the full 15-minute video, full 30-minute video, and answering the questions at the end, the assessment questions, then you can go years without being detected. So that's what you're seeing in that report.
So let me just get this right, because I've gone through, in my line of work, I've gone through every year. I think there's a sexual harassment course that I have to take, and they have vignettes and modules and questions that we have to answer. I know on my platforms that I've gone through over the last 15 years, or probably longer than that, there's not an ability to skip through anything. It's kind of like a safe, a safe stop, I guess. It forces you to watch the 2 or 3 hour training that you have to take. Are you saying that in these modules, there was an ability that you could skip through maybe some of the vignetting and go directly to the questions?
Depending on the platform, and keep in mind that the Municipal Police Training Council, I believe, is the provider of all of this content now.
Sure.
So there's been some changes since my retirement in 2011.
Sure.
But that being said, depending on all of the controls or lack of controls, then yes, someone could bypass if they didn't want to watch the whole vignette, or if they wanted to skip directly to the assessment questions because they knew the subject matter.
Right. All right, let's play this vignette and we'll see what Boston, CBS News here in Boston had. And they've been doing a fantastic kind of little mini series on all of this. And it's just like, whoa, my head almost explodes when I see these reports come out, but we'll play through this vignette here.
To a WBZ exclusive. Each year, police officers in Massachusetts are required to do 40 hours of online training to keep up with new policies and changes in the law.
But WBZ has learned dozens of officers have found a way to skip through much of that training. WBZ's Louisa Moeller is live in Linfield. And Louisa, police chiefs across the state are just finding out about this.
Lisa, David, they found out about this late last week, and here's why this is important. First and most obvious, police officers are sworn to uphold the law. Honesty is crucial. And also, these trainings are required by law in order for police officers to maintain their certification to serve in the state. And as you said, sources are telling us this involves dozens of police officers.
We will now administer the Narcan.
Whether it's learning about treating overdose victims or how to properly tie a tourniquet,
the SWAT key should be placed as high on the limb as possible.
Every sworn police officer in Massachusetts is required to do 40 hours of training a year, much of it online through a portal called P.A.T.R.I.O.T.
And that's state police as well, right, Todd? This is when
Correct.
they say police officers, they're saying everybody that's involved in a law enforcement entity, correct?
Correct. And Brian, just to make a connection here,
Sure.
The reporter mentioned the term certification. Certification, at one time when you graduated from the academy, you took your oath of office, you were sworn in.
Sure.
Now, because of the George Floyd incidents and some of the different standard change of policing, you now have a licensure that is controlled by the Municipal Police Training Council. So every police officer within the state, other states as well, but speaking about Massachusetts, they are licensed. Part of your license requirement is to complete this 40 hours of training.
Aha. Got it. All right, let's keep playing through here. See what we got.
But WBZ obtained this letter sent to every police chief in the state. It says the Municipal Police Training Committee, or MPTC, the state body in charge of police training, found officers skirting the system. The letter states, quote, "We have discovered instances where trainings that should take hours to complete are finished in a matter of minutes, using techniques that override controls meant to prevent fast forwarding through the training." Sources tell WBZ as of last week, MPTC identified 70 officers in 11 departments who had bypassed P.A.T.R.I.O.T training.
There have to be systems put in place to make sure that it's being handled properly.
MPTC has now shut down the P.A.T.R.I.O.T portal while it investigates, requiring all training to be in person. WBZ security analyst Ed Davis says the committee needs to find a fix for the system because police training is vital.
You also have Supreme Court decisions that really change the landscape on how officers can operate. You've got the introduction of things like body cameras, which are completely new to police over the last 5 or 10 years, and they need specific training. So I can't underscore how important this requirement is.
Be aware that a patient may have multiple wounds.
Now, the NPTC says anyone who skipped watching these types of training videos will be required to train in person, and their names will be sent to P.A.T.R.I.O.T, the state commission in charge of policing the police.
Now, NPTC released a statement to us saying, in part, it remains deeply committed to ensuring academic integrity and it's still reviewing the number of officers involved. This is not the first time NPTC has faced issues this year. Coming up at 6 o'clock, more from our previous investigation on the instructors at NPTC. Live in Linfield, Louisa Moeller, WBZ News.
Louisa, we'll see you at 6. Thank you.
Todd, let me ask you, you think a lot of this mainstream media, well, I say mainstream media because in Massachusetts, specifically what's been happening here and going into, Trooper Garcia, what's happened to him, 70 days, we just passed 70 days and still no answers in his case. Do you think that's why, and we just heard the reporter saying we're going to talk about the trainers inside these academies. Do you think that sparked more of the interest in the mainstream media now to dig into these stories and get this out there, because we're not hearing anything that happened in Garcia's case?
Well, twofold in that answer. One, let me start by saying my reaction to hearing 70 officers not in compliance, that seems like a low number to me. There's thousands of cops in Massachusetts, tens of thousands. So it's 300 different, over 300 cities and towns. Mass State Police, Boston Police, well over 2,000 each agency, Worcester, Springfield, those are the next preceding large agencies. Right there, you're at probably 6,000 or 7,000 police officers. So, I thought that number was kind of low to be quite frank with you. To answer your question, I think the media is more alerted towards training standards because of the death of Enrique Garcia Delgado. But that being said, the background work of these agencies still has to happen. The MPTC still has to hold standards. They're the standard bearer. They have to do their job internally. Is it popular for police chiefs to hear that their personnel are circumventing training procedures? No, but they're bound by law to vet the information, present the information. You and I talk about all the time in the spirit of transparency. They've got to be able to bring that information forward, and then from there demand compliance.
You think we've just? Let's keep it simple. Do you think it's just a lot of lazy policing?
Oh, it's a shortcut, 100%. I remember, and I can't imagine it's any different now. You were able to do that training on the job.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're requiring you to carve time away from your family. It's during your shift that you take that training, right? Because it's work related. So it's no excuse.
Yeah, I agree. So obviously we're going to talk a little bit about Trooper Enrique Delgado Garcia. I just said, 70 days have passed. I've met with the family. I've spoken to his mom. I've spoken to his sister. I stay in contact with them now, every couple of days or every couple of weeks, I'm just texting them and asking, how are you? Is there anything that we can do? And just keeping that open door of communication going. And Todd, I'll tell you, I speaking to them in person, they get nothing. They're hearing nothing. Their lawyers and are advising them to, remain silent at this time. When I spoke to his mother, she said just a few weeks ago, they just got his car and his belongings back from training, the training facility. They just got him back. It's been what I said, 70 days. And I was like, really? That's crazy that they would have held on to the items that long. Also, just some stories I can share about Enrique, as his mom started to go through his things, and just tried to understand a little bit more about who he was. Some private things came out, and she was very surprised in the sense of how unselfish he was, in the fact of he would donate to the Humane Society. She saw all these donations, and it just really gripped my heart when she told me this stuff, because she said it was never really things that he ever talked about. It was just things that he did. And there was another incident she told me about. One time they were in a house together. I guess a large spider had gotten in the house and started to run around. Everybody says, "Ah!" And he go, "Kill it, kill it, kill it." And he said, "No, we can't do that. We need to take it out and put it outside." And it's just sad to hear those stories and get to see photos of how he was in life, and videos. They shared a video with me, and I also saw the photos of the injuries that they took in the hospital, and those will never leave my brain. They're burnt into my brain forever. And it's crazy because I look at the injuries that Enrique Garcia suffered, and I kind of do a side by side to the photos of Officer John O'Keefe, and they almost are a mirrored image, in my opinion. But here we are, 70 days, no medical examiner's report, no information to the family. What do we do? What do we do at this point?
Yeah, we're in a waiting game. As far as what you saw, you can't unsee what you saw. For the family, such a tremendous loss. You and I both disagreed with the district attorney's press conference when the family was there. That was horrible for the family.
Yeah,
but I will echo that DA Early, District Attorney Early, at least acknowledged the kind-hearted person that Enrique, as a man, he was. So, it was good that was shared to the community. It was good that was put out. But again, we can kind of turn our nose up at the other conduct. I'll just leave it at that went on during that press conference. But to going back to your question, Brian, we are 100% in a waiting game. It won't take forever. But we just, whatever report is going to come back from Attorney Meyer, whatever it's going to say, then the attorneys will then have something tangible to either scrutinize or be able to utilize in order to bring some clarity and some justice for the family on behalf of Enrique. So I'm confident that's going to happen. It is a waiting game, though.
Yeah, and the thing is, I've been very vocal on all my social media platforms. I tweet at the governor pretty regularly. I tweet at the Mass State Police regularly. I tweet at Andrea Campbell pretty frequently, and I've written David Meyer's office multitude of times through email, and I got an answer after about the second time I reached out, and I got the standard answer. They're not going to publicly comment at this time. And now they don't return any of my emails because they're probably like, who is this guy? But I think it would be something nice for the community, for the family, to just put I don't care. Give me a blanket statement, just something that, as we continue, to look into what happened to Trooper Enrique Garcia, our best efforts or whatever it may be, instill that public trust that you are working on this, because it just feels like it's being lost and forgotten. And I don't want it to be coming into a situation where, this turns around and this gets hidden and they offer the family a pile of money to stay quiet. As we know, this could, to me, in my opinion, this is a beating. This poor young man took a beating at that academy, and I don't want this story hidden. And that's why I talk about this a lot. I rally about it a lot. And I just don't want it to come down to a situation where here's a pile of money. Let's just make this go away. We're going to continue and go on. How do you feel about that, especially with, the new colonel that's come in to take over the Mass State Police?
I can tell you the high profile nature of this case, the colonel's hands are tied. That report from Attorney Meyer is going to really take the direction of where the attorneys for the family are going to go. What makes me nervous is when you start hearing things like non-disclosure agreements being pushed around, and I don't know that to be the case.
Right.
But that is typically something that is on the table, and usually there's a settlement shortly thereafter that. So that would shut the transparency of the incident at hand. That it would shut that down, and you wouldn't see the light of day as far as any information if it goes in that direction.
Right. No, I agree.
So, again, we hope for transparency. We hope for information to be shared, despite whatever it is, and it'll give at least some type of foundation for the attorneys to do their best work for the family.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that really scares me too is you look at, special investigator David Meyer. I mean, took over the drug lab scandal. It took him almost a year to get that report out. And I sit here and I go, the Delgado Garcia family cannot wait a year to hear what happened to their son, their brother, their cousin.
But I'll say this, Brian, though, at least at the end of the year, someone was held accountable. Annie Dugan did jail time based on that. So yes, it's a tremendous amount of time to be spent, a lot of money that goes into these investigations. But at the end of the day, it's about, in my opinion, it's about accountability.
Yeah. I just want this family to get some answers. They're getting nothing. You're standing in front of a mother that's, crying and weeping, and they're just saying we're getting nothing. There's nothing. And they're waiting. They're just in tow, and it's sad. It's really sad that they're waiting, and they've had to wait this long. And as far as like a medical examiner's report, guess what? I'm not going to be able to get it because I'm not family, and I know that they're going to just deny me anyway. And they're not even giving it to the family, which is weird in my opinion, because I thought by law, after 45 days, it had to be released. Again, I'm not an expert on medical examiner's reports, but that's what it's looking like, that this is just all being kept under hush from the public. And it's a tragedy. It really is.
And anything a part of the investigation is not going to be released. It's just, you don't know where this ultimately is going to go. You don't know if it's going to be a lawsuit. You don't know if they're going to settle, and that either side is not, the state's not going to take a chance, as well as the defendant. The family attorneys are not going to take a chance at anything interrupting their case or throwing their case off. So it's sensitive. It's a delicate matter.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't agree. I agree, but I don't agree. I just want the information.
I get it.
So we have recently some reports that came out again from NBC Boston, voice of the Mass State Police Academy. We're having recruits now coming out and telling their stories of their experience in the Mass State Troopers Academy. And we have this one here. A former recruit opens up about Mass State Police. We'll play this vignette. And I know they're going to mention Baptiste that we've heard before. And then also this is going to go back about 28 years, 30 years ago, when a recruit was killed at one of the academies, and what has gone forth in this. So we'll just check this vignette out here.
The death of a state police academy recruit has brought renewed attention not only to the academy's training, but also its culture. It spurred us to launch Commonwealth Confidential, State of Policing, a week-long series exploring policing here in Massachusetts. NBC 10's Bianca Beltran has our next story, uncovering a comprehensive review that took place over 3 decades ago that raised concerns about police academy training and the risk it posed to recruits.
It was hell for me in the academy.
Derogatory comments like being told to go back to Haiti, sleep, and meal deprivation. These are some of the experiences Giovanni Jean-Baptiste shared with NBC 10 Boston investigators about his time at the Massachusetts State Police Academy.
Every day, bullying me.
They echo the experiences of police academy recruits 36 years ago.
The recruits were basically hazed. Verbal abuse, physical abuse, taunting, ethnic and racial epithets tossed at them. The idea was that this was a stress reactive approach to training, and it was meant by some to say weed out the weak links.
Former state representative Kevin Blanchette was part of a panel appointed by Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis in 1988. They were tasked with a comprehensive review of training at police academies across the state following the death of Timothy Shepard. Shepard was among a dozen recruits at the Agawam Police Academy hospitalized for exhaustion and dehydration after grueling training. More than 30 years after the intense review, Blanchette shared his reaction to the death of state police recruit Enrique Delgado Garcia following a boxing training at the New Braintree Academy.
I saw that and shivers went up my spine. I turned to my wife and I said, no, oh no, here we go all over again. People should not go to a police training academy with the expectation that they might die. And something seriously is wrong.
The panel urged police academies in Massachusetts to eliminate the so-called stress reaction training or modified stress environment training, noting that psychological and physical risks associated with it could not be justified.
I like to refer to it as stress inoculation training. High stress in a controlled environment where you can stop the action, provide critique,
hey, look at that famous guy.
Training, education.
Todd McGhee became the defensive tactics coordinator for the Massachusetts State Police Academy in 1998.
And the philosophy is that stress inoculation training better prepares that recruit for real world encounters that they ultimately will face at some point in their career.
More than a third of recruits in the most recent Massachusetts State Police Academy did not finish.
Wow.
That's more than double the national percentage of recruits who did not complete basic training. As an independent investigator looks into the circumstances around Delgado Garcia's death, McGhee expects the investigation will examine not only the protocols, but the culture of the State Police Academy.
If the allegations of hazing or harassment are valid, I believe it'll be confirmed. And it'll be confirmed from not another recruit, but I believe that the integrity of the academy members, if they've seen something and at the time maybe walk past it, here's the opportunity to speak the truth.
Massachusetts State Police has vehemently denied the allegations of abuse made by Jean-Baptiste. The trainee manual for the 90th Recruit Training Troop warns that hazing is not tolerated by MSP. Governor Maura Healey has asked the new colonel leading state police to review the academy's training and procedures. Reporting in the studio, I'm Bianca Beltran, NBC 10 Boston.
Anything you want to add? So I mean, I find it hard to believe. I mean, if someone's coming out and saying these allegations that, you know, the awful things that were said to them, the racial things that were said, I mean, it's got to come from somewhere. Someone doesn't just make that up. I don't believe that they deny that this is going on. It's got to come from somewhere.
Ryan, let me start with Shepard, and then we'll fast forward to Baptiste. So in the situation of Timothy Shepard, it was at the Agawam Academy. Shepard had a medical history. And I don't want to sound insensitive, but these are the facts. He had tried getting into 2 previous police academies. He failed the body fat test as well as some physical battery tests. He made it in his 3rd attempt into the academy. He did everything he needed to, got himself prepared, but his body was still deficient in nutrients. The training regimen, the article, there were, I believe, his class had 50 recruits in it. There were 16 that had some type of medical complications to it. His was the worst. And based on his participation, he dropped, was not revived, and had died as a result of the training. So completely different than what Enrique experienced.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a police recruit at a training facility during their recruit training, but different circumstances. So we have to differentiate between the 2 scenarios. As far as hazing goes, like I said in the video, if there was an opportunity for a staff member to come forward, I believe in the integrity that someone will say in an investigation, yes, I heard or I witnessed or something to the nature of that something inappropriate in line with hazing happened and it was directed to these recruits. I have to believe that the men and women that I know that do the right thing day in and day out would come forward and share that with the investigation. That being said, hazing is not accepted at the State Police Academy, and I'm going to tell you why. Going back, I don't know if it was the 76th or the 77th RTT, there were claims of hazing. It was substantiated. Not only was the commandant removed, who had nothing to do with the incident, but he had oversight, as well as the trooper, who was a drill instructor, was disciplined and transferred. So I know for a fact that hazing is not accepted at the State Police Academy. Was it missed in this particular case? Was it buried under the rug? We need to wait for Attorney Myers' report in order to be able to call that out.
And I want to go back to just something you said a couple of minutes ago that scares me. What if non-disclosures are on the table and we'll never really know?
Non-disclosures cannot protect any type of criminal misconduct.
Okay.
So great. I'm glad you brought that up, but that's the full cycle, that if something of gross negligence or gross negligence, which is the worst standard,
right,
that would then lead towards some type of charges, and criminal charges do not protect non-disclosures. And
I'm glad that you clarified that, because I know that's been a lot talked about on social media, you know, in the Facebook groups, on Twitter. Well, you know, if they sign a non-disclosure, then they're not going to be able to talk, you know, about the gross negligence that's been going on. So I'm glad that you could clarify that. And that's why I wanted to kind of throw that question at you and see how you would react to it and what you would say. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate the transparency in that too. All right, let's talk about, this came up in that vignette, talking about stress reaction training. You tell us a little bit about what it is, what the examples are, and what do you think that going forth in the academy, they'll kind of retool this this type of training if they're going to continue to use it at all?
So let me start with the philosophy, and I touched on this in the video with a reporter. You know, the mindset is that our police cadets, our recruits, go through a battery of controlled stress related training. That means that there are drill instructors that it's old school, in your face for the first 1/3 of the academy. There is, you know, moving your room, your clothing, your training gear, your books. You know, moving room changes is what we used to call them, right? So you have a matter of time to achieve that room change. The whole time there's a lot of yelling, screaming, direction, just controlled chaos. So the mindset is that you're bringing recruits through a stressful environment, one, without putting your hands on them. You never put your hands on a recruit, first and foremost. Secondly, that if there is an incident where someone is having a medical incident, you do this, you call time and you get the medical attention. You don't let them drop. You don't let the other recruits tend to them. There's a professional medical unit that's trained as BLS or ALS level of EMT certification, and they get help, right? And they get them back to where they need to be able to participate in the training. I would run certain drills within defensive tactics, but I always, in my staff, I never taught a class by myself. I always had a staff, which meant additional eyes and ears, force multipliers, to make sure that no one's lightheaded and no one has passed out in the bathroom and we're back on the gym floor and we don't know about them, right? So there's 100% accountability the entire time. But when we put them through stressful drills and stressful scenarios, the training objective is, okay, what did you learn? What did you do wrong? What did you do right? What can you improve on? That's the objective of the training. In the firearms, I wasn't a firearms instructor at the State Police Academy. I was a firearms instructor at other municipal academies. But you would bring them through, the stressor was time. Just you have to achieve this battery of drills in a time element. That was the stressor, right? So you have to really be able to understand the training to understand what all of the stress means. It just doesn't mean that there's constant in your face yelling and screaming. There's other ways to create stress.
In quick question, and I have a good question in the chat that I'm going to bring up here in a second, but I have another kind of follow-up question. So you said that not allowed to put your hands on a recruit at all. You cannot do that. Can you get up in their face? Can you finger point? Can you swear at that recruit? Is that type of behavior allowed?
Swearing is unprofessional. It's not condoned.
Okay. And how about things like finger in the face, anything like that? Is that allowed? Because I've seen.
Yep, I could see that happening. I could see, I've done it myself, inches away from a recruit's face in order to create that stress. And then from there, you give them their direction and then they're off.
Yeah, we see a lot of that in like Marine training when the DI gets right in their face and they're just full on right in their face and wanting that response back. And they'll stay there until they get the response that they want. Let me just
any person that's cleared to go to the State Police Academy, everyone asks questions. Everyone knows everybody, someone that's gone through or is a state trooper. And you ask, what am I getting myself into? Right. So that's not something that's held back. Everyone going to the academy understands what they're going through, what they're stepping into. They just might not understand how overwhelming it can be when they're actually going through it.
Yeah, I actually looked online the last couple of days preparing for this session that we're doing tonight, and I found kind of it's like a preview of what you should expect at the academy, and it actually gave you the list of all the physical requirements that you'll be run through, the examination that you'll go through, the fitness conditioning tests. They talked about ways that you could burn the right way to burn calories and the wrong way to burn calories. And I found it very interesting, but the manual that I saw was, I think the last time it was updated was like 2003. That's the one that I could find online. I'm not sure if there is any updated manuals, and you probably know better than I do.
Yeah, that seems old and outdated. But that being said, the standards are still the same. The standards haven't changed. And it's not uncommon for people to be dropped out of the academy because they can't pass the fitness standards.
Yeah, I'm sure it's tough. I'm sure they do put you through a lot of stress. And from what I've heard and, read about the academies, it is tough. They want you to be able to survive on your own if you're in a life-threatening situation. So I'm pretty sure it's extremely tough. And as we heard the reports that have come out in the last couple of weeks, people calling it hell. And listen, I don't want to shit on it because I try to respect it, but there is a lot going on, and it's just time to get this cleaned up. I mean, it's far too long, and I'm hoping that Colonel Noble is the guy that's going to get this job done under the advisement of Moore Healy, which I don't have full confidence in. I'll be transparent about that, but it needs to get cleaned up. I mean, this can't happen anymore. It just can't happen.
Yeah. There's a lot going on right now. There's more for us to talk about tonight, of course. But that being said, when you these stories of the recruits that are speaking their mind now, I understand the reporting. The problem I have with it is that it's a distraction from the family of Enrique Delgado Garcia.
And I know we talked about
that I have a hard time with.
Yeah, I know we talked about that. And, I think the largest focus has to be on that case. I completely agree with you on that. Not that these things are not going to come out. Not that people are going to step out and say, hey, this is my experience in the academy. We know that. And I know what mainstream media likes to do too. And they like to kind of spin these smaller embers up to kind of say, oh, well, but I do truly agree. I mean, the biggest focus here is we need to know what happened to Trooper Delgado Garcia. That is an
bottom line.
0.1 right now on this chart. 0.1. A lot of questions. And let me just do this real quick before we go to this next slide, Todd. I saw this question come up, and maybe you can answer this. Now, we have heard that there is a video of the incident with Garcia that was filmed. I mean, I think this here is probably asking, would you know if there's any type of video camera or closed circuit TV cameras in and around the academy that would have captured this?
So there was a report that the actual boxing exercise was filmed. And if it was filmed, every boxing exercise for every recruit would have been filmed. So that's also footage that Attorney Meyer's team is going to be going through. The room was a gymnasium. That's where the exercises are conducted. So just to put some specifics to the question. So yes, there is a film of Enrique's match, as well as other recruits that went through, until I don't think they got all the way through because of the timing of the incident. I believe there were more exercises that were scheduled and they were canceled because of his death.
From what I heard in sources that told me, that there was a long lapse in time for you talked about the what is it? The on-team response team, the medical team. There was a lot of scrambling. There was a lot of time before they got to Delgado Garcia. It took them a lot of time to get him into the ambulance and actually to the hospital. And that's what some sources tell me. I don't know if you've heard any of that. I don't know if you want to disclose any of that, but that's what sources have told me. Go ahead.
Let me bring some clarity.
For sure.
Part of the controls that I firsthand put in place as defensive tactics coordinator, medical unit, full-time staff at the academy. These are troopers that are trained as EMTs, BLS, ALS level of certification. They are not doctors. There are no doctors on the academy staff.
Okay.
They are required to be physically present during every drill, every boxing exercise. The Suburban that we had, it was our makeshift ambulance, but it doesn't have the same life-saving capabilities that a truck would, that an ambulance, a traditional ambulance would. So they needed to contact the local healthcare facility and get that team of EMTs onto the academy site, transport Enrique to help revive him, and then transport to a medical facility. So the delay wouldn't have been from the medical unit. The delay would have been from getting the municipal or whoever's on contract out there onto the academy grounds, transport Enrique, and then en route to a medical facility.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, so then we heard another controversy that's come up, Todd. Same class as Trooper Delgado Garcia. We heard about the Mass State Police trooper that was charged in a drunk driving crash and who resigned. I'll just read a little bit of this headline. Massachusetts State Police trooper was arrested for drunk driving this week, has resigned from the department. James Doran, who graduated the State Police Academy just weeks ago, was given a dishonorable discharge, WBZ team, I-team sources say. So that leads in kind of our bigger conversation here. And I want to ask you, we're seeing this a lot in this trend, obviously, that's been happening, but could you tell us a little bit about what type of mental and physical evaluations happen before you're accepted into the academy and going to the training to being a Mass State Police trooper?
Let me start with the precursor that any person wishing to go through the police examination takes a civil service exam, regardless if they are looking to be their future employment with the municipality or the state police. If you're then selected as a candidate, there is a psychological evaluation that you are required to go through. There are people that don't make it through that psychological evaluation for reasons of overaggression or too passive. So those are, or there's other factors. I'm not a psychiatrist, but it is professional. It is administered through an independent agency. They are not connected with the state police for transparency and for checks and balances, but there is an independent psychological examination. Physical, before, as you are going through the recruitment process, there's also a background check, right? So there's someone knocking on your neighbor's doors and asking questions. That's done and conducted by I believe the certification unit of the state police. So they're given a file, maybe 15, 20 candidates, and they do the investigation. And part of that is checking your background. Once you go through all of that series of vetting, Then there's the physical testing, which is, I believe, 1.5 mile run in the obstacle course at the State Police Academy, where you're physically on the academy grounds and you're going through a battery of testing.
I got a question. So we just saw in that formal report that it said that the dropout rate in the Massachusetts State Police is about 35%. Knowing that it's probably very difficult to fill positions now in policing, I would say probably across the nation, especially here in the state of Massachusetts. Do you think that the quality of evaluation has maybe dropped a little bit? Let's just kind of fill the quota. What kind of answer would you give that in your professional opinion?
So here's kind of, there's so many reasons why people drop. And when I first was assigned to the academy staff, I was assigned to do the exit interviews, and we would get great police officer candidates that were from other municipalities, and they were making good money with their former agency. And when they got recruit pay, they couldn't pay the mortgage. Right? Or they're married with kids and their wife is a stay-at-home mom, and they were depending on that check with overtime, just to make ends meet. And they had to go back to the old job. There were other people that said, I realized that this just isn't the job for me. Some people would drop out because I'm not here for myself. My dad wanted me to be a cop, right? Trying to make my dad happy.
Right.
So there's so many reasons. As far as the high percentage, it's always been at least 25%. I've never seen a class less than 25%. So 37%, yeah, that's high. But it's not astronomically high compared to what I've seen traditionally in the past.
Yeah. Let's go on to this here. So obviously we heard this report that came out talking about crash cases and a review of the Mass State Police lawsuits. And this talks about kind of the Freedom of Information Acts and how difficult it is. And we're going to see after this little vignette of what I've been kind of working on behind the scenes to try to extract and get information in the Trooper Delgado Garcia incident. And I've been turned away a lot too. And they love to, when they deny my request, and you're going to see it, it's a lot of the HIPAA. It's HIPAA. And I just find that to be very interesting. But we'll play this little vignette and go from here. Oh, let me get the sound up here. Oh, what'd I do? Let's see. There we go.
Well, this week, you've heard us talk a lot about transparency and accountability at the state police. Much of the information uncovered by the NBC-10 investigators comes directly from records obtained through the Commonwealth's public records law.
Yeah, but getting our hands on these records, it can take weeks, months, or in some cases, years. Tonight, NBC-10 investigator Corey Smith explains why the public's right to know is sometimes stymied by what some consider to be the Commonwealth's culture of secrecy.
There is a lot to love about Massachusetts, but one thing Bay Staters and folks in our business can't stand is the Commonwealth's well-known lack of transparency, especially when it comes to public records. The folks fighting for your right to know believe that culture of secrecy trickles down from the governor's office and the legislature to state agencies like law enforcement.
We, in theory, have a public records law that allows people to get access to just about anything, but in practice is full of holes.
As a freelance journalist who reports on police misconduct, Andrew Comer is all too familiar with the pitfalls of the Massachusetts public records law.
Agencies just act as though they're
that
above the
website,
law, and they will ignore public records requests if they don't want to answer them.
Comer has practically seen it all. He said agencies charge astronomical fees to gather records, erroneously claim they're exempt from being disclosed, or ignores requests altogether. In one case, Comer says he waited nearly a year for Mass State Police to provide him with 2 spreadsheets.
One of the most well-funded agencies in the state, and they simply will not respond to a records request if they don't want to.
Comer says this issue permeates through agencies across the Commonwealth. It's why journalists like him and First Amendment advocates like Justin Silverman are calling for changes to the law.
It's just a very weak public records law that on its face should grant us a lot of transparency, but in reality, it doesn't.
Silverman is the executive director of the New England First Amendment Coalition. He says the governor's office, legislature, and judiciary being exempt from the public records law encourages noncompliance among other state agencies, with law enforcement, like the state police, among some of the worst offenders.
The Massachusetts State Police, I mean, they've been recognized nationally for their secrecy.
According to the Secretary of State's office, the Massachusetts State Police have received thousands of records requests every year since 2020. By law, an agency can ask for an extension of the 10-day response window, file a petition to charge more than the $25 per hour maximum fee to gather records, or claim one of nearly 24 exemptions to limit the information released through heavy redactions like these, or withhold the records altogether. The public does have a right to appeal, and each year hundreds are filed with the state's supervisor of public records.
We can make our case, and we might even get a ruling in our favor, but ultimately, in order to enforce that ruling, we have to go to court.
Silverman says that has to change. Both he and Quamere want the supervisor of records to have enforcement power.
The supervisor of public records has to have the ability to just, take these agencies to court, to sue them, and to force them to comply, instead of just having this system where, they can't do anything.
But with a new colonel at the helm, Silverman believes state police now have the opportunity to bring more transparency to the agency.
Reset the department how it works as far as how it withholds information, how secretive it is. We need to take that secrecy out and make sure that there's a presumption of transparency.
Now, we reached out to the Secretary of State's office about those calls to give the supervisor of records enforcement power, and we're told the office supports the move. While the legislature has not granted that authority, the last update to the law did give requesters the opportunity to obtain legal fees in certain circumstances, which in turn has made it easier for requesters to pursue enforcement through the courts. Corey Smith, NBC 10 investigator.
Todd, your reaction?
I highly doubt under Colonel Noble's administration there's going to be any changes. It's going to take a class action lawsuit in order to get any type of change in the spirit of transparency. It's going to take a lawsuit. So, it's my gut opinion. It's going to be business as usual unless the courts compel state agencies to act differently.
Yeah. And I mean, this goes to just kind of my, I was going to put these up. This has my last name on it. I forgot to redact it. Not that people can find me anyway, but, I've been doing a lot of public records requests for Enrique de Garcia. I tried to obtain his file from the Mass State Police Academy, exit interviews. I tried to get John Baptiste, his exit interview or his file from Mass State Police, turned down. And the violation that they keep saying is that it's a HIPAA violation. And, it may be that I'm just not wording it correctly, or I'm just frankly not going to get it. Your thoughts and reactions on that, Todd?
Yeah, I think HIPAA is a convenient excuse. And, I've done the exit interviews. That's got nothing to do with HIPAA. Short of, I'll give you a hypothetical scenario.
Sure.
If a recruit sustained an injury that required him to be recycled, meaning he could return to another academy without prejudice, right? And that injury was documented at the exit interview. That's the only thing I could see where they could take the exit interview and lump it in with a HIPAA concern. Other than that, it's why did you leave here? Were you harassed? Were you hazed? Were you bullied? Those are the questions that you're trying to get. That's your objective in those interviews.
Yeah, I can't remember, but I know WBZ was trying to get some information, and I forget what it was pertaining to, but I think it was something to do with recruits leaving the academy, percentage or some information about recruits leaving the academy, and Mass State Police came back and hit them with like a $300,000 fee to get this information. And it was just one of the most like stymie things that I've ever heard in my entire life. And I'm like, and this is the things here for I guess us in public transparency and in our feelings. If we keep hiding behind these so-called paywalls, or we throw these violations like, just throw HIPAA into it. I mean, you've seen the documents. I've sent them to you. I mean, you've seen the responses. And, to me, it's just like, it'd be really good if we could just get some more transparency. I think it would build more confidence in public perception of our policing here in Massachusetts. And we're going to talk a little bit about that towards the end of the show. But What I wanted to ask you is, and just going back to my slide, is let's talk about internal affairs investigations. So I'm just going to back up a little bit here in this slide. Obviously, the latest scandal, and this is terrible, horrible. Mass State Police trooper suspended amidst sexual misconduct allegations, and this was the article here. Sexual misconduct allegations were related to an incident in Lexington. The DA and police are independently investigating. So my question is, what is the process of an investigation like this, and how are these things handled?
Let me first say something you might be surprised to hear me say, but if the allegations are true from that misconduct, that trooper should be fired immediately. Immediately. To answer your question regarding the internal affairs, it's important for your viewers to understand that internal affairs is an internal administrative investigation. There are no charges assessed against the person that the complaint is against. The investigators are fact finders, right? Typical investigation, like you would think in any other circumstance, you're on a fact finding mission. Once the investigators are finished with their investigation, they will then make a recommendation. I believe to a trial board is the group or the entity that's assembled, and then there's a recommendation that goes up to the superintendent's office. And then the trial board will assess the violations or the alleged violations that may have been corroborated in the investigation against policy violations of against policies and procedures. And then from there is a class 1, class 2, class 3, and it goes on from there. Some violations could be, you've seen like with Lieutenant Tully, he got suspension, days taken off the books. You might see disciplinary measures all the way up to, like we saw at Proctor, discipline with you're suspended without pay, right? But you're still a member of the department. You're just not receiving compensation as whatever process is going on. It could be something where you have a 6-month suspension and then you're brought back to the job. In that case, you have to go through some retraining. So there's a bunch of things that could be the outcome of a internal affairs investigation.
Yeah, I mean, obviously not the type of, I guess, discipline we would think with Tully here, knowing, being in those awful text messages connected to Proctor and in the Karen Reed case. I mean, it was almost, to us, Free Karen Reed supporters and the supporter of Karen Reed, a slap in the face. And then obviously we have Trooper Proctor that is still currently suspended. And they just, there was a piece of controversy that came up about 2 weeks ago that was put out there via social media that Proctor had been fired. And I know that ultimately, I went out and I sat on it for a second and I wanted to do my research and I waited and I didn't see anything from the local media hitting. I didn't see Turtle Boy jumping on his platform right away and saying Proctor's been fired. I didn't, and that's why, I reached out to you and I said, could you give me maybe a status update on Proctor and what the process of that would be as far as being transparent with the public. So, my question is, a trooper status after an investigation or suspension, does that have to be transparent to the public? And we talked a little bit about this in the green room. So let me throw a scenario at you. If Trooper Proctor was fired, what is the process of that? And would it have to be transparent to the public?
A decision from the superintendent's office, Colonel Noble, will document the status change, right? When you hear status, that's what we're making reference to. The status change is suspension without pay to dishonorable discharge, meaning termination. That's what we mean by status change. That would be, again, posted at every unit, every barracks within the Commonwealth. And at that point, that is just the completion of an administrative act. That termination doesn't necessarily mean that there are charges being brought up against Trooper Proctor. That being said, there's still the federal investigation that's in the background of this thing, right? That's not going to go away. Probably worthy of another video at this point, but it's just the completion. If that termination comes full scale, it's the completion of an administrative process. So that's why I say it's not necessarily hiding that status change from the general public. And also, as we both agree, that because this is the highest profile case in Massachusetts at the time, that every journalist, every media outlet is going to know in a nanosecond when that status change happens.
I completely agree. And that's why I was just like, this is wrong. And I'm seeing like my friends all over Facebook, social media, oh, Proctor's been fired, Proctor's been fired. I'm like, no, I think we all know that at some point, Todd, after all this goes down and we're getting ready to, we're heading towards Karen Read 2.0 here. And you just, earlier when we were talking, you said, well, look what happened just immediately after the verdict. What information did we get? Bam. It was almost like the press release was ready. Not even an hour after we get the verdict, we heard Trooper Proctor has now been suspended. I'm always going to guarantee everybody, I'm going to say this to the audience, and maybe Todd will agree with me. They're not going to actively fire Proctor now. They have Karen Read 2.0 coming on. Brian Walsh's case. He was the lead state police investigator in that. So they have to sort through that. And then he probably has, dozens of other active cases that he's involved in. So in my opinion, and maybe Todd can concur on this, that it's probably not going to happen until if we get to Karen Read 2.0 and a completion and a verdict. We're going to probably hear right after that that he's been fired. That's probably when they're going to announce it. Am I wrong?
Brian, I don't think you're wrong. I think that's a scenario that could likely play out. But I'm going to add on to what you just broke down.
Sure.
And bring back the DA Morrissey element of things, right? He's still in the mix. He's still in the mix. And his influence in who's going to be assigned, to prosecute the case and all that's his call. So until he steps down from his office, he's a player in this. So, love it, hate it, however people feel about it. DA Morrissey is still in the mix of this whole thing.
And now we're hearing reports that he was using a private email server and what was on those things in the communication. It's just, it's one of the most wildest cases that I've ever heard in the existence of cases that have happened. And it's just every other day there's something else that's new and a new element of corruption or whatever you want to call it in this.
And you don't think Jackson and you don't think Jackson and Unetti are going to use that?
No, of course they are. Of course they are. And just with the hearing today, you saw Hank Brennan they're now trying to get Karen Read's parents' phone records because she called her parents, late that night at 1 o'clock in the morning. We've all been there. I'm sure we've called our parents when in the middle of the night. I think it's a big fishing expedition that they say that even they're trying to get the Gretchen Voss notes, which I think have been out anyway. And he's trying to say that Karen made all these confessions. It's the movie script, you know what I mean? It's just, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Yeah. And here we go. We may be heading towards 2.0. Let me do this, Todd. We'll end here on this segment. Do you mind after this vignette, if we could take maybe just a few questions from the audience, if I can pull them up and have you answer them?
Let's do it.
All right, perfect. So here, we had public perception and how can we change the organization? I think this is all, kind of the end complete of, what I wanted to go through there and just asking, is there any standards anymore? How do we get back to those standards? How do we get back to, cleaning up the Mass State Police, being more transparent, making sure that we're doing our public outreach and building confidence back in our policing here in Massachusetts? But we'll hear this little vignette here, and I'd love to hear your
The
reaction on it.
Massachusetts State Police is the statewide law enforcement agency with the broadest jurisdiction in the Commonwealth.
Now, most of us only interact with state police troopers at the airport or along the Mass Pike, but recent headlines have thrust the agency into the public eye, opening them up to public scrutiny.
Sue O'Connell continues our series Commonwealth Confidential with a look at how people are feeling about the agency tonight.
The handling of the Karen Reed murder investigation and the death of a trooper in the State Police Academy have sparked public outcry on social media, in newspaper columns, even in day-to-day life. The criticisms of the agency seem to be growing louder and louder. As part of our ongoing series exploring policing in Massachusetts, I took some journalism students from Boston University and hit the streets to get a sense of how the general public views the state police.
If I say Massachusetts State Police to you, what's your first reaction?
Criminals.
What are your first thoughts when you hear Mass State Police?
Ooh, if you asked me that maybe 2 years ago, I'd say, oh, okay. Protection, power, and on our side. You ask me today, I think there's some bad apples that need to be removed.
When I say Massachusetts State Police, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Oh, problems.
Problems? What kind of concerns do you have?
Integrity.
When I say Massachusetts State Police, what do you think?
I feel like they do a good job in making sure that we're safe and patrolling and making their presence known.
The poor opinion that some people have about the Mass State Police is not new, but a series of recent scandals has only heightened public criticism. I sat down with Joan Vanocchi, an opinion columnist at the Boston Globe. She's been writing about the MSP for years.
The Karen Reed trial has thrust the culture and the behavior and the investigation tactics into the spotlight. What are some of the challenges that you see in the state police culture that may be keeping them from being the police force that folks may want?
Well, the state police have embraced and seem to continue to embrace what they call a paramilitary style of training and approach to their job, whereas other police forces, including the Boston Police Force, have come to see mediation and negotiation and interaction with the community as the way to do their job. The state police have continued this very confrontational approach where they see themselves as this military force.
The public will only put up with so much.
Mary Connaughton, the director of transparency at the government watchdog group, the Pioneer Institute, says the agency needs to address the growing list of scandals head on.
It's not only a drumbeat, it's getting louder and louder and louder. And it really makes a lot of people very nervous about the state police and their ability to turn it around for the people. Not saying that can't happen, but it's going to take a long time to regain the public trust.
To change perception, Connaughton and Vanocchi agree. You have to change the culture of the agency.
It will take some massive reforms, at least for the public to have comfort that it's moving in the right direction.
Internally, there's no incentive to change. It has to come from the outside and say, no, we want to stop this, we want a different approach. And that just hasn't happened yet.
During a speech at the 90th recruit graduation back in October, State Police Colonel Jeffrey Noble told the new troopers that he was committed to working hard to gain trust in the community. He said the most important tool is the public trust that must be earned every single day on and off duty.
Your reaction?
Number of thoughts here. For every one bad apple, I could point to 300 good apples.
Yeah.
And that's not just with the Mass State Police, it's with every police agency. So you have to call out the bad apples. In what I would ask your viewers to consider, when you see the termination of a recruit because a trooper because they were drinking and driving, or if you see them suspended because there was allegations of sexual misconduct, there's accountability right then and there, right? So I would ask, don't look at, oh, here's another scenario. Hard not to, but don't dismiss the fact that the department has taken measures to discipline troopers that have some level of misconduct. That means that the system is working. We don't want to see these incidents, but when they happen, that someone's paying attention and is enough to bring that level of accountability to those troopers based on that undesirable behavior and that misconduct, and also breaching the public trust. So what's going to bring back the trust of the community? You know, one of the criticisms I have in law enforcement in general is that we need to borrow a page from the business community. Police departments need to start to begin to share when they do things the right way and when there are some success stories, to be able to build the brand. And when you start to build the brand, you also protect the brand. So that also minimizes, hopefully, some of the misconduct and some of the undesirable behavior that can happen from individuals within the department. But it's a process. But I truly believe that law enforcement could borrow some of the strategies of big business and what they do to protect the brand.
I respect that, Todd. But, you know, I look at things like Tully, Proctor, you know, and I know we just talked about it. The Commonwealth needs them in the Reed case, you know, where we got it. You know, we've, you know, our opinions we've figured out here of what happened in that case. I'm not going to speak for you. I know you have your thoughts on it. I have my thoughts. You know, Karen Reed's being framed. That's my stance. I know, I just feel like, you know, 6 days, come on. You lose 6 days of vacation with the horrible things that you did, that you took part of in those text messages, and knowing that were going on and not putting a stop to it. It's almost like a slap into the face to the Commonwealth that, you know, how you saying, yeah, you know, some of these things are being taken care of, but not really the head of the snake. You know, these are people and leaders in positions, high positions in the Mass State Police that are allowing this stuff to slip. So it's like, yeah, the guy that got drunk, he's gone. The sexual misconduct, and I'm not negating any of these infractions because they're all horrible. Okay, I'm not trying to put a level set on it, but you have, you know, a couple heads of the snake here, in my opinion, and we've seen what they've done, and they're in high supervisory positions, and it's almost like, they're kind of getting a pass, but everybody else is being policed in I guess a sense. How do you feel about that,
Brian? I think it's fair, at least in the Tully Proctor situation, for all sorts of reasons. There's politics completely mixed in to that decision making, right? And we called a little bit of it out regarding Proctor, but politics is riddled through that entire investigative effort. So, you know, should there have been? Is there an argument to be made for harsher penalties?
Sure.
Based on the supervisors, yes, but we can't forget the fact of the political influence that it's just a reality of that case. So when there's no politics involved, and we can both agree that Massachusetts is a heavily political state, when there's no politics involved, usually the right call is made in a disciplinary action.
We talked about it backstage, Todd. What is the biggest powers of influence in all of this? Politics and money. It always comes down to politics and money.
Every time.
Oh my gosh. We got to get it cleaned up, Todd. We need to get this cleaned up. I want to have faith. I want to have trust. You know, I talk to good guys like you. I call you one of the good guys. You know, you're a straight shooter. You don't bullshit, in my opinion. And you know, like I said, you're a friend of the show, and we have many offline conversations. And I just wish there were more good guys like you doing the job. And I just hope I do, but I don't know if I have much faith, but I hope this gets cleaned up soon.
You know, that doubt by so many is well warranted. And I would never defend, you know, the against someone's feelings of mistrust, right? Because it's certainly been earned as far as the numerous amount of infractions. But you know, that being said, you know, let's move on to some of those different questions by your viewers, and let's see what they want to chime in on.
Let's do this. We'll just take a couple minutes here before I let Todd go. If anybody has a question, if you want to just put a Q in your question, maybe I bring like 3 or 4 of them up, and Todd can answer. We'll just wait here for a second. So again, if you have a question for Todd, put Q, ask your question. I'll grab one, you know, a couple of them up here. We'll throw them up and let them go. And I appreciate, again, Todd, thanks for taking this time. I know it's holiday time here. We're getting ready to eat a lot of turkey and spend time with our friends and family. We'll just wait a second here. If I don't see any come through, I'll let you go. Any questions? Throw them out. There's a little bit of delay.
Yeah,
No?
Brian, I saw I saw the last sexual misconduct story that came out last week, and you know, I just shook my head and said, okay, you know, here's another incident, and you know, hopefully the job will respond the right way.
Yeah. So Jones asking, is there a higher dropout rate for female cadets versus male?
I don't have the statistics in front of me. There was a report that was released. One of the media journalists in the mainstream mass media did have a breakdown of how many recruits started, how many male, how many female. It was a pretty good breakdown. The challenge is that there's always more males than females. So if you get percentage wise, yes, there's a higher percentage of females that drop than males. So from that data point, yes.
Yeah. Again, we'll just answer this real quick. So Brenda's asking, you know, with the video existing, the video that we've heard that existing, you know, why is this incident taking so long to get answers? And maybe Brenda came in a little late to the broadcast here, but if you want to just quickly answer that.
Yeah. So Brenda, great question. The video, first of all, the video of the boxing exercise would have been conducted for every recruit up until the incident of when Enrique was transported to the hospital and then ultimately died of those injuries, would have been recorded. That being said, that's evidence, right? That video is not going to be released to the general public. It's part of a evidentiary collection of evidentiary material that eventually could be entered into a trial. So we're not going to see that at this stage of the investigation.
Great. I'm going to take probably one or two more and then I'm going to let you go here. So Double M says, why are there two standards for the police in Massachusetts? State police has their own academy and everyone else has their MPTC standard.
So by law, great question, Double M. By law, the MPTC has been traditionally the training standard for municipal agencies. The Mass State Police trains state police cadets as well as what we call special state police. So those are police officers that are assigned at hospitals in the state, at some of the universities around the state, Massport Police. They're all trained by the Mass State Police as well, not just state police troopers. So that is allowed by law for that standard. That being said, there is discussion that because of this incident with Enrique Delgado Garcia, that the Municipal Police Training Council will take over all police training within the Commonwealth. So that remains to be seen. That could be years down the road by that type of a decision. But right now, that double standard is allowed by law.
All right, I would take one more here, and then I do want to let Todd go. Again, Todd, I want to thank you for your time and willingness to come on and you know, answer some of these tough questions and be transparent about how you feel about it. You always add tons of value to this platform, and I really do appreciate your time. I really do. Let me just do this here. Double M again. I like this question too. Why can't an officer from a city or a town lateral transfer to the Mass State Police, even when the officer is already post certified?
So again, great question, Double M. The laws are different. Municipal agencies will typically enforce the terms escaping my brain, but more of things that pertain to municipal agencies and municipalities and municipal law and those types of things. Is there overlap with state police, what the state police enforces? Absolutely, 100%. But the training is different. It's a different environment. You're entrenched in with the community, with a municipal agency, and training for state police prepares you to work in rural areas, interstate highway. It's a completely different animal. Both are dangerous in the types of job function that municipal police have compared to state police. But there are some unique differences that would encompass different training.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll just leave you with this. We have a super chat from this subscriber here. Boston Traditional Character 88 says, thank you too for being so willingness and courageous to speak out for justice. It's refreshing to see good people still exist. And thank you. I appreciate that. And I want to thank, I'm going to let Todd go here. I'm going to close up the show here in a second. I just want to thank Todd again. Thanks, Todd, for coming over here, doing this with me, answering the tough questions, and being transparent and straightforward, with us and the audience. And like I said, you are one of the good guys, and I appreciate you. And you're always welcome to come on this platform and talk.
Thank you, Brian. I just want to try to bring some level of transparency. We're in some very strange and unique times. We're seeing some not good news reports, to be quite frank, that are happening from our largest agency, my former agency, the Mass State Police. And there are some other horror stories from other municipal agencies within the Commonwealth. So we do our best to bring transparency, accountability that on those different issues that we need to talk about. And let's set it up for the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. And happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. And I hope that we get to catch up soon.
Thank you, Brian. Take care.
Absolutely. Have a great night. Thank you. All right. I love when Todd comes over here. So great. So informative, not afraid to answer everything, fully transparent. And I love his opinion. And he's been a huge friend and source to me here on LTL. When I have those tough questions to ask, I will reach out to him and say, Todd, what do you think? Give me the straight. Give me the straight. And he does that. So thank you all for being here. If you're watching this on live now, make sure to smash the like button. I had a couple of cash apps I wanted to get to and just announce this out. Deborah, thank you so much for the $20 cash app. I appreciate that. And Amber, thank you for the $50 cash app. I appreciate that. So again, great show. I hope everybody gets to watch this back on replay. If you do, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Gosh, we've had a couple of days of really amazing content here. I just really appreciate you all being here. Subscribers, my Go Squad members, my moderators. I love you all. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a show tomorrow. I might do a Go Squad member tomorrow. Something a little bit more relaxing because we've had some pretty intense shows the last couple of days here. And again, it's just great. I'm so glad to be part of this platform. I'm so glad to be able to include all of you through my YouTube journey here, and all the friends that I've made through this platform, and all the people's lives that I've had the ability to touch and hear their stories and, ask their questions. Again, this started out as I was just a guy in my bedroom doing YouTube videos, and here we are, and I just want to keep leveling up, putting the best source of content out there for all of you, asking the tough questions to the experts, and getting to the fucking truth in all of the things that we follow here on the LTL Media channel. So thank you so much. I love all of you. If I don't do a show for my members only tomorrow, I want to wish everybody out there a happy and safe Thanksgiving. Get fat, because we got about another month, and then New Year's resolution is going to happen. I am going to be working on my New Year's resolution because I picked up a little bit of weight that I want to drop. Soda's the big one. I need to stop drinking the Diet Cokes. Gosh, I love a nice cold Diet Coke. But that in the new year in a month, that's it. I'm over. Back to the diet. We'll drop these LBs and, try to keep still looking pretty here on the LTL Media channel. All right, everybody, go watch Turtle Boy. I think he's starting at 9 o'clock. I love all of you, and a salute to all those amazing creators out there and all the ground troops out there. Again, I want to wish all of you a happy and safe Thanksgiving. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate all the friendships that I've made here. And we're going to keep rolling along. So everybody take care. Have a great night. I will talk to everybody soon. I'm going to hit the outro. Peace.